Hello and welcome back to Compromising Nostalgia. Damn it, I fucked up my own joke.
You did.
Right at the gate. But, you know what? I am the king of running jokes. God damn it. We have to restart.
Nope, we're leaving it in. So,
no, come on!
Today, we're adding in two games. First one being Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo. I can bring my old jokes in, too.
Oh, funny.
And Battletoads on the NES.
Okay.
So, we're gonna, since Super Mario Kart was your game to bring in, go ahead, I guess, say why you wanted to play it and where it falls on your list.
Yeah, anyone who watched the episode got the major gist of it. Super Mario Kart was one of my formative gaming experiences. It might even be the first video game I ever played. It's kind of hard. My childhood memory is a little fuzzy on which game was first. But it's definitely in one of the first 5 video games I ever played. So I have a nostalgia for it from that perspective. But when I say that's one of my first video games I ever played, it was on a console owned by my cousins at my grandma's house, and the number of times I played it, I can count on one hand. So it's not a game that, I played my childhood and have been keeping up with this whole time. This is a game...
and if someone watched that episode, you got crushed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no one would accuse you of being good at Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo.
No, I'm fine with that. But it was kind of fun to go back and experience that slice of nostalgia, literally, again, and to go through that. Having said all that, the game is not great. I think it has value in the fact that you do have the ability to have more than one player, and the battle mode, I think, is better than the racing mode. Like, I think the battle mode's more fun.
Funny how you just destroyed me in that. So you're like, yeah, I like that one. The racing where Nathan won, that's not so good.
Well, you know me, I'm not a huge fan of racing games in general. I think the battle mode, especially, I'll be honest, if it had 4-player option, it'd be much higher on my list.
Something I want to look up is if Super Mario Kart came out before or after the multi-tap came out.
Oh, interesting.
Because it may not have even... That technology might not even have been thought of when that game was conceived.
Yeah,
that I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would not be surprised.
Hey, this is Sick Nathan from the editing room. So it turns out that the Super Multi-Tap was created for Super Bomberman, which released in North America, according to Wikipedia, September 1993. I don't see a specific day, but Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo was released in North America on September 1st, 1992. There you go.
But so having said all that, I don't think the gameplay is particularly impressive. It's got a certain amount of personal value to me, but really more as like a museum piece, if that makes sense. Like, this isn't a game I'm going to be like, oh, I'm having a craving. Let's go fucking fill me up, So for that reason, this one comes in just above Flintstones for me, second to last on my list.
Okay.
It's a game that I think has redeeming value. I think that it can be fun to play. If someone was like, hey, I want to play Super Mario Kart with you, I'd be like, yeah, sure, like, fuck it, let's go do a circuit real quick. You'll probably kick my ass, but then I'll convince you to do the battle mode where I'll have a better chance, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't really have any strong feelings about it, but I do think that there is a certain amount of value there that just edged it out over Flintstones, in my opinion. Because Flintstones, I just did not really strike me in an interesting way at all, so.
So, for me, that game... And I might get kind of crucified for this, but no one watches, so it's perfect. That game, Super Mario Kart, is all charm and no substance for me. But there's something there.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd say so. It definitely has it's definitely very novel. I mean, just the idea of, like, the whole map being 2D, like, flat to the ground, because, like, that's where technology was at the time. Like,
yeah, that was Mode 7 graphics, I believe.
Very charming. Like I said, like, this is very much, I'm sure, a nostalgia piece for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people have played this Mario Kart who went through that generation. I just happened to play it probably several years after it would have originally come out, because, I think the reason my cousins left that at my grandma's house was because they got a 64, but that's not here nor there.
Yeah. So, and like, for me, it feels very floaty, and like, lack of precision, and that honestly that could be due to the character that I was picking.
Yeah, it's true.
So
Donkey Kong and the wife beater definitely made it rise a few points in my esteem.
yeah. So it just where I would fall in my list. Like I'm looking at my list in order right now, and at the end of this, we'll throw up the list. But looking at God of War, I'd rather play it than God of War. God of War being at the bottom of my list for PS2.
Just fascinating that you and I disagree on God of War so much. I think
Right.
it's still the top of my list.
Honestly, I'm looking at it. I would rather play it than Black.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I would not rather play it than Flintstones at Dinosaur Peak. So
we agree in that regard, at least.
I'm putting it.
Oh no, we disagree. I'm sorry, I had that backwards.
Yeah. No. I'm putting it above Black, in between Flintstones at Dinosaur Peak. Whatever number that may be, we'll put a graphic up at the end of this. So that being said, moving on to one that I picked that I'm very excited about, Battletoads for the NES. So the reason I picked this is because I guess as of the time that this episode will go out, it would have been about 2+ weeks since I actually beat it on stream. But I beat Battletoads on stream for the first time, documented the whole process from start to finish. Took 40 hours. And
I like how streaming it is documenting it, in your opinion.
Well, it is, because if I literally started from me playing level 1 kind of for the first time, and then going for completion and not playing it off stream, that's documenting the process.
I mean, sure. I mean, you've recorded the process. I think of documenting more as like a professional approach. Like if you'd taken something with that footage and like done something with it, I would say that's more documenting. But you are technically correct here. I'm being more
contrarian and an ass.
I'm being.
If Justin's being an ass, let me know in the chat.
I'm being pedantic, and also, you know, it's my default state of being, Nathan. Come on.
No, you're good. It's kind of the reason I wanted to play it is because one, I got it for free from Christian before he moved away. He gave me his old NES and a stack of games. That was one of them.
Yeah. And
Battletoads is notorious for being super difficult. So I kind of wanted that badge of honor as a retro gamer to be like, look what I did.
Sure.
And like, I'm a real retro gamer. Like, I wanted that badge of honor beating Battletoads, and like through the, whether it be Stockholm Syndrome or me legitimately enjoying the game, I came away really, really enjoying it.
I mean, you and I talked briefly last night about, you know, the things that we enjoy as gamers and from games. Yeah. And one of the things we talk about is that sense of accomplishment from overcoming an arduous task, right? Yeah. And I think you definitely get a larger amount of enjoyment from that kind of completion than I do, but I definitely respect it. I definitely understand where you're coming from in that regard.
Yeah, and like Battletoads, like I don't want to go too far on and on about it. Check out the final run that I did instead of the 40 hours of me getting to that final run. There's an episode up on the channel. I'll throw it on the end card if anyone wants to see it.
Yeah, but
tight controls. Every level has its own kind of gimmick. Like every level does something different.
Yeah.
All the controls are super tight, super precise, in my opinion.
Where do you put it, Nathan?
I'm throwing it high. Part of the reason I wanted to wait to talk about this, I didn't want to be prisoner of the moment of like running off that high of beating it and like throwing it in a position that it didn't necessarily deserve to be. But I'm thinking, looking at my list, it's going on the top. Not like directly at the top. I'm looking at like the top 3.
Right.
My top 3 right now being Bushido Blade, Dark Watch, Red Dead Revolver.
I still can't believe Dark Watch made it that high on your list. But that's
relative to the games we have, it's not going to stay up there, I have a feeling.
I imagine.
I think I'm throwing it at number 1.
Number 1?
Out of the games we have right now, I'm throwing Battletoads up top. Part of the reason I was kind of dancing around a number 2 underneath Bushido Blade. But the reason I didn't is for something that you kind of brought up on
our episode where we talked about
other multiplayer games like Bushido Blade and yeah, stuff like your logic for where you put it.
Yeah.
Was a lot of the fun we're having is contingent upon having that other person who's in a like-minded state that you can reliably get to play said game.
No, I'll be honest with you. Bushido Blade would be my number 1 if it didn't hinge on that multiplayer component.
Oh, and something to add, we'll talk about, you know what? You rank Battletoads, and then we're going to go into a new segment that I'm calling Old Business until we find out a name for a better segment. But Yeah, where would you put Battletoads on your list?
Battletoads for me is going to come right below Bushido Blade and above Rule of Rose.
Okay, so it's your new number 5.
It should somewhere like that.
Yeah.
If we're wrong about that, we'll have the lists here visually in a moment. But yeah, Battletoads was a game that I really didn't expect much from, it not being really within my wheelhouse and not my kind of game.
Yeah.
But everything you said, I can't deny how true it is. It has a great charm, in my opinion. The controls are tight, makes sense. The game is surprisingly consistent. Really, my biggest gripe with it is something that we brought up during the episode in which you and I played it together, which is the need for repetition and memorization. But at the same time, I feel that it's just a victim of when the game came out, right? Because games would want you to be pouring hours and hours and hours of time into this thing.
Yeah.
They want to sell you on the idea that the thing you're buying, that you're spending this large amount of money on, which it would have been a large amount of money back then,
Yeah.
on an experience that's going to last you a good amount of time. You see remnants of that kind of thinking even today when games tout their large map or their long hour playtime, right?
Yeah.
Those are all remnants from that time period where it's like, oh, I want to get value for my money, which is not a bad thing inherently. But like I said, I think Battletoads kind of suffers from that. I wouldn't say it'd be a better game if it's a game that I could just pick up and think that I could just get good enough to make progress as I go. It might be a worse game. It might be a better game. I really don't know. It'd be a different game.
Yeah.
For the game that it is, though, it has so many pluses for it that these minuses are kind of minor, in my opinion. I mean, it doesn't go any higher, like I said, because of my minor gripes and it being a little bit outside my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But even with it being outside of what I usually play or what I usually enjoy, I was surprised by how much fun I was having with it. And, I was surprised by how much progress I made in it.
Yeah, you did make it to level 3.
Yeah.
Which I was not expecting you to do in such a quick amount of time, having never touched the game.
Yeah. It's very intuitive. I feel like anybody could be introduced to this game and pick it up. I mean, this is a game that I could introduce my father to, and my dad, who used to play the arcades back in the fucking late 70s and 80s, could pick this up, figure out this game within 5 minutes, and probably have a decent time with it. And that really says a lot for it. Like I said, though, having said all of that, I could definitely see someone getting this game and immediately being turned off when they get to the harder sections that require that head bang against the wall, retry, and then memorization of what's coming.
And the turbo tunnel is where 99% of people fall off.
And
game.
I get it 100%. I mean, I could probably force my way through that turbo tunnel, but I'll be honest with you, I could see myself playing that for an hour, not getting through it, then being like, yeah, I'm not going to play this anymore, and maybe never even touch it again. But yeah, no, I think this is a solid game, and I think a lot of people have already talked about the value that it has as a game in general.
It's infamous in the retro community.
And like I said, I'm really surprised by how much I enjoyed it. It's one of those things where as I get better at platformers, beat 'em ups, which is just kind of like a hybrid of the two, really.
Yeah.
I might even change the placement of this on my list, because you and I, as we make the list covering every game ever released in the entirety of human history, I'm sure that I'll be playing more games that are, I am more unfamiliar with, that are outside of my my usual norm. And maybe once I get better at these kinds of controllers, these kinds of mechanics, maybe it'll move up. Maybe I'll learn to appreciate it even more. But yeah, right now, it's right there in the middle of the pack for me.
Fantastic. You're getting a little long-winded and repeating yourself somewhat in that conversation.
Yeah.
But you said a lot of things that I like to hear.
Because I agree with you.
Exactly. Now, something I want to end on Battletoads. Something we did do at the end of the episode was play co-op. I had never done that. Changes the game entirely.
Yeah, I mean, the co-op was fine.
You both have to be so fucking in sync, and when I realized, if one person dies in the turbo tunnel, you're doing it over. Basically 2 people have to beat the turbo tunnel simultaneously, which is fucking wild.
That is brutal. Yeah, not a game I'd probably play 2-player super often.
No,
but
you'd have to find someone that, has that same drive, and no offense, you don't. Not for any one game, especially of that era.
No.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But those are our rankings now. I do want to get into old business. Black?
Give me that yellow journalism, baby. What's your propaganda?
I think I want to move... The more I thought about it, and the more... Because you and I edited last Sunday's episode together.
Yes.
I have since rewatched the Black episode again. You've watched it.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing a lot of the faults in it. I still think there's something there on Black. It just... I'm going to move mine down one below Rule of Rose.
Oh, wow. That's the opposite direction I was expecting when you brought this up originally.
Still above God of War. I still would just rather play a first-person shooter than God of War 1. Like, I'm not saying that, like, maybe God of War, like, 2, 3 might add some more depth to the combat that I would appreciate, or, like, add more varied environments. Because God of War 1, it's very much... There's, like, 3 types of environments, if I'm being a little hyperbolic, but not by much.
Yeah.
And each environment kind of overstays its welcome a little too much for me.
You can tell they were working on a budget and they were stretching what they had for as long as they could.
I don't blame them for how God of War 1 turned out, but of the games we played, I'm still keeping God of War at the bottom. I'm shifting basically Rule of Rose and Black.
Fair enough. You brought up and you and I talked about the idea of updating our list as tastes and skill and opinions, change and develop over time. Black stays right where it's at for me. I think my reasoning is slightly different than maybe...
So below Rule of Rose, above Dark Watch.
Yes. It stays right there. I'll be honest with you. Black would have had the ability for some upward momentum if it had more control customization.
Yes.
Not being able to change.
No subtitles, no fucking sensitivity adjustments.
And no ability to change button input. And don't get me wrong, a lot of these games do at least one of those poorly.
It had none of it.
It did all of them poorly. If it gave me one of those options, I might be able to justify moving up the list, but without any of those available, I'm very comfortable where I put it, and I think I put it in the right spot for me. Now,
another thing I do want to add, it's not going to shift the game's position on my list.
You shouldn't look away when you're talking, because you're going to... You looked at your notebook while you were talking.
I'm leaving this in.
I'm just saying, like...
No, you're good.
You just did it again.
I know I'm doing it again. I'm doing it on purpose now. But no, Bushido Blade, it's not going to shift its position on my list, but something we did do since ranking Bushido Blade was play the single-player campaign. It was something you and I just kind of did for fun one night, off, non-recorded. It's super fucking shallow, and it's about... all it is you fighting NPCs, and they almost feel more tanky than, people do fighting them normally. I feel like it doesn't really add a fucking thing.
I knew it wouldn't, which is why I didn't feel too bad when we talked about it, that we hadn't played the single player. Having said that, though, one of the other things that we did was we did take a look at the manual, which did explain a lot of mechanics that we weren't previously familiar with.
Because I own Bushido Blade, but I only own a disc, and it was a rental copy, so someone had ripped the cover off the manual to use as, an insert for, a display on the rental service.
Yeah.
So...
I remember you telling me how disappointed you were that it didn't come with the manual.
I was, but so we did look up a PDF, and there's way more depth and shit than we realized.
Yeah, I mean...
not enough to shift my position, though.
Exactly. Bushido Blade, I'm very comfortable where it's at. Having learned the new things from the manual, once again, practice, time, experience might change my opinion, but, finding out some of the combos, as well as the fact that certain characters have special moves with very specific weapons, all very interesting, but not really interesting enough for it to shift. Maybe once we start playing and actually getting into it, maybe it will. Who knows?
Oh, Bushido Blade's not done on the channel. I mean, it's consistently one of our better performing... I think every Bushido Blade video we've ever put out has always hit 100 views.
And I love playing it,
So, well, that's going to be it for this episode. I will have put up the graphic showing our new updated list over this conversation towards the end. Yeah, cool. The next games we're playing next week, which have already been recorded, so I don't feel bad actually saying them this time, are Super Mario Brothers for the NES, and the real banger of the group,
Detective Barbie Mystery Cruise on the PlayStation 1.
You can guess who picked which game, but we'll leave it a mystery. So, we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Bye.